victory and the agony of defeat.
Great ball around the corner, Penisini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold this!
Hello and welcome to a live edition of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host John, also known as 4020, and joining me is my good mate Sixties, also known as Craig, here to break down what has suddenly become a very, very hectic Tuesday for the Parramatta Eels. Last regular season game for the NRL, they're wrapping things up, mate, but there's been a flurry of re-signing news today. A couple of our talented Eels inking long-term extensions, and we'll get to that shortly. But as always, how you doing, mate? Hopefully not drinking any toilet water.
No, I'm not, mate. Steering clear of that. As we'll learn later in the podcast, there must be something in the water up there in Brisbane because there's some crazy stuff going on. But, John, let me just start off by saying, if I say the name Dennis Carnahan to you, what do you think of?
Well, I'd think that maybe Parramatta's located in a different state.
Where is Samoa? That's in Queensland. Pangaparawa? That's in Queensland. Where is Bowraville? That's in Queensland.
It's everywhere, mate.
Queensland's everywhere.
Yes, one of the classics. That's the updated version when they changed the origin eligibility rules back in 2013.
Well, mate, Dennis Carnahan he's actually coming to the Parramatta group of clubs. He's actually coming to Vikings at Dundas, and he's actually got a great show that's it's on Saturday, October 11, and it's like a season review. He does Rugby League the musical, right? So this is Rugby League the musical season review. So the grand final will have just happened. It will be a case of the seasons all wrapped up, and Dennis Carnahan, he's got that mixture of music and comedy, and it's a great show. It's the sort of show where you just throw on the old footy jumpers, get to Vikings, kick back, have a laugh, have some fun, have a few drinks, something to eat.
Dundas is in Western Sydney still there, guys, as far as we know.
It's not in Queensland. It's not in Queensland, John. Look, the tickets are only $50. They will sell fast. So you've got two options. You can go to our post where we've got this podcast on TCT. There's a QR code on that.
Yeah.
You can also go to rltm.com.au. That's the Rugby League the musical. That's the website. So they sell tickets on that. Don't miss out on it because it's going to be a laugh a minute. And when you've got someone who makes such funny observations about rugby league and what happens in the world of rugby league, and he can mix it with jokes and comedy songs and what have you.
Do spy a 5-star review from Yvonne Sampson, Nee O'Keefe, friend of TCT and obviously First Lady of Rugby League there. So, Dennis has had a pretty great, almost whimsical mind when it comes to combining musical aspects and sort of, like you said, funny sporting insights, and it'll be a great show.
Yep. So just a reminder, that's on Saturday, the 11th of October. If you haven't been to Vikings before, it's down in Quarry Road at Dundas. It's been all renovated, plenty of parking down there. Yeah, just a really great venue, and recommend the bistro there too. It's got a great variety of meals and all the great club prices as well. So head down there, and of course, we mentioned that as well because one of our great partners is Parraleagues. It's the home of the Eels. We will be there this week, John, on Sunday, probably around about 1:30, 2 o'clock. We just got to sort that out because we've got a 4 o'clock kickoff with the NRL, and we normally land about two and a half hours before the main game in Sturlos. It's our last appearance at the club for 2025. we've really appreciated everyone who's come along and said g'day. It happens every week. People come up, introduce themselves. We appreciate that. It's great to put a face to a lot of the names that are either in our chat or drop comments on TCT, or they're simply just great listeners who want to come up and say g'day. So there's that. Also, of course, to our OG of sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta. Greg and the team, they've been on board for 2025 like they have for nearly every season that TCT has been in existence. I'm sure they're going to be lining up again next year, as will maybe a few other sponsors. So we've got a few people that we'll be talking to after the season's over. And if anyone else would like to be in touch with us about a sponsorship package that can suit them, we'd really love to hear from you. And of course, no matter what platform you're watching or listening to this on, if you can give it a like and subscribe, that would be fantastic. And also a reminder, we don't stop the podcast when the season's over for Parramatta. We don't stop the podcast when the NRL season is over. We keep going because for us, following Parramatta is 52 weeks a year. So we might drop back to 1 or 2 podcasts, but you'll get podcasts all the way through to next season.
As prodigious wafflers as we are, there is still a limit of what we can do in the off season. So we'll stay abreast of NRL happenings, and obviously if the Parramatta Eels do anything major in terms of recruitment and retention, we'll be all over that. And maybe we'll do some a combination of sort of season reviews and whatnot, and then looking forward to what's happening in 2026. But
and there's a kangaroo tour and Pacific Test and all that sort of stuff. So plenty going on in the world of rugby league. So, John, this is going to be a jam-packed episode with Eels news and NRL news. There's some funny stuff going on in footy and also some good stuff going on at the Eels. So, mate, hit the stinger.
News team, assemble!
All right.
Well, John, as soon as that game ended against the Warriors last Friday, we were straight into pushing for getting a sellout at CommBank Stadium this week for the final game of the year. We're still pushing ahead. We want to see that house full sign go up. I can't think of a better way to end the season because we're not going to play finals football, but this team has given us plenty to cheer about, especially in the back end of the season. It's a bit of a pointer to what we might be looking at next year. And what better way, as I said, than to fill up the stadium and to be able to give the team a cheer on that last game of the year in a double header match where it's the NRL first off and then into the NRLW after that. Really looking forward to this week. And there is so much to look forward to about this game, John. First talking point about it is we get a farewell game for Dylan Brown.
Yeah, we sort of, without any inside information, we sort of thought that might be on the cards based on how Jason Ryles had been speaking about Dylan Brown, the fact that he held his place initially with Sean Russell coming back. Obviously that was reversed when it came to the actual match day team list last week. But the fact that, Dylan has carried himself in such a manner that has compelled Jason Ryles to publicly come out and speak in such glowing terms about a man that is leaving his team. I think that the send-off was sort of in the stars. And look, there's going to be some mixed thoughts on this one. I wouldn't be surprised if there's people in chat that would prefer to have seen Joe Ash play, and I completely understand that pragmatically. And if you're looking for development-based results here, that Joe Ash getting one more game would have been useful. But I think Joe Ash has shown enough in the last couple of weeks that Ryles could be content with maybe giving him the week off, depending on what happens with the New South Wales Cup, and giving Dylan that send-off. And fittingly, Dylan meets his future employers here, and a chance to one last ride with Mitchell Moses in the halves. Get the Eels to 3 straight wins, 10 wins on the season. Surprisingly, a fair bit on the line here in a very much a dead rubber game otherwise.
Yeah, well, the Knights are battling to avoid the wooden spoon. The Eels with a win, probably a win of any substance. If the Tigers were to lose, then the Eels
would consign Newcastle. Go into 11th, yeah.
leapfrog Newcastle, go to 11th. That would be, I'm not saying you get satisfied with that sort of result, but at the start of the season, we talked about the Eels. I thought they'd finish somewhere between 6th and 12th, and I know that's a very broad area on the ladder to land, but I wasn't getting carried away with saying, look, the Eels could go top 4 or even top 6. I mean, when I said 6th to 12th, I was really thinking like 7 from 7th through to 12th. If the season had gone exactly to plan, that maybe they could have got snuck into the back end of the 8. And I didn't think they'd finish any lower than 12th, but you never know, and they still might if they lose this game. But I think it's given what's happened this year, John, with the number of injuries, of course the key injury to Mitch Moses, where he's only going to end up playing about half the games for the season. This is on top of last year only getting to play about a third of the games last year. It's a fair whack to be without your captain and basically your number one elite player in the team. So, look, I'm looking forward to being able to say farewell to Dylan. I had a bit of a chat to him last week up at Kellyville and said my own personal farewells to him. Just said it's going to feel a bit strange not seeing him around the place, seeing as though we've been used to him being in an Eels jersey since he was still 15 years old. In fact, he hadn't turned 16 when he finished his first junior rep season because he's like a mid-year birthday. So, he was still 15 during the junior rep.
Yeah,
his first Harold Matt season.
Was it Maury Breen? Was that the oval that we saw him at?
Yeah, Maury Breen against the Central Coast Centurions.
Yeah. What a throwback.
As they were just then.
Yeah, the Centurions back in the day.
Yeah, we've got you've got the old footage there on the TCT YouTube channel
of his first action. It is very surreal, isn't it? We've seen a lot of we obviously watch a lot of junior reps, and we've seen a lot of great players and a lot of decent players and players that were good but didn't pound it all the way. Dill was one of the first we really watched as relatively speaking a baby in rugby league terms come all the way through to taking the Eels to a grand final. And he's leaving.
John, he was the one that all those years ago, and he was in an Eels junior rep team that was, had some outstanding players in it, and players who were like really, really talented, but for one reason or another haven't as yet kicked on to a big NRL career. But right from the outset, you could see that Dylan had something about him as a player where we looked at it and as you've said so many times before, John, that it's trying to identify junior talent at a young age that will go on to have a substantial NRL career. It's a high risk occupation in terms of, if your job depended on you getting it right, even 30% of the time, you'd probably be doing well if you did get it 30% of the time, because it's a real funnel, isn't it, for where the players come in large numbers, and then it gets narrow up to the NRL level, and there's so many talented players that don't go on to have an NRL career for one reason or another. It can be injury, lack of opportunity. It can be that maybe they just didn't want to commit to training and playing the way that NRL players have to. And often it's got nothing. It probably has minimal to do sometimes with the talent. It's some of those extra influences or factors that determine whether a player does have an NRL career or not. But he was one that you felt that it was a safe bet to say that he was. Yeah,
we've seen guys that you think are blue chip prospects, guys that are good that maybe with a bit of luck can get there. Dill was at the top of the blue chip status right there. He was a guy that was almost always going to be destined for first grade. And you look back at his junior resume, won the Harold Matthews grand final in 16, turned that into an SG Ball grand final victory in 17, lost the then Holden Cup grand final in the same year to Manly on the buzzer, and then took the Eels, or was part of the Eels team that went to the 22 NRL grand final. So he achieved. I know that people are frustrated with his form in the last couple of years and what happened in 23 off the field, but he's achieved as much as pretty much any Eel in recent times, which says as much about the club as it does about Dill. But he's done some fantastic things for the club, and I will certainly wish him the best at Newcastle. As always, with the caveat that when the Novocastrians meet the blue and gold, maybe Dill was a little bit of an off day.
Yeah, John, I can always remember when they lost that NYC grand final, as you say, like literally in the closing seconds to Manly. Dean Feeney, who was he ran the Parrahouse back then, and I think he was the NYC coach at that stage as well. But he was telling us that it was like a day or two later, and Dylan asked if he could sit down with him and go over the video of the grand final. Like he wanted to look at what he could have done a bit better. So, and look,
Dylan's game has. It is fair to say that Dylan's game has plateaued at Parramatta, and I sincerely hope that by going to Newcastle and having the onus of being the man there at Newcastle, he can reignite his career and go to the level that we are waiting for him to ascend to be that final form of Dylan Brown, the playmaker. I really hope that he can do great things there. Yeah, again, the caveat that when he plays the blue and gold, that he can go back into some rough form. So, but he's look. I know people were upset, understandably, about what happened off field in 23 when he got suspended for 7 games. He's a good kid. He is a good kid, and he's played some fantastic football with Parramatta Eels. And I will miss him. And I think that the Eels made the right choice in not matching that Newcastle offer. I'm not upset by that. This is just the nature of the beast, the price of doing business. You're going to lose, story blue and gold player like Dill every now and then, and it worked out well for both sides in that regard. So I do wish him the best, and I hope that he can have an awesome game on Sunday.
Yeah, well said, mate. Another reason to be there, Will Penisini's 100th NRL game, John.
Yeah. Will also doing a bit of his own media this week, which we'll get to very shortly. But yeah, he tons up on the same game that we farewell Dylan, so it's going to be a mixed feeling game in that regard. Will has had his struggles earlier this year, but I think ever since it was the game that he got suspended where I think he turned it around. I think in the last sort of quarter of a season, outside of that South Sydney game, where I think a lot of people struggled, he's been really, really good. And I think that it's a massive vote of confidence from his coach, Jason Ryles. It's another big piece solidified for the future. Sorry, I'm spoiling the news there, but Will gets to his 100th game, and we haven't seen the best of him. He's only 23 years old, Craig, and he's had his struggles, and people in chat have been very critical of him, deservedly so at times this year. He has not been at his best throughout the early phases of this campaign, but he's starting to put it together. And that sort of segues, I suppose, into the other news that Will had this week. But really happy to see him turn up. It's a fantastic milestone. It's a milestone that not too many players get to achieve, mate. And I think that anyone, high profile or not, that gets to 100 games, I think fans should give a bit of a tip of the hat, because the NRL was a damn growing sport, and getting to that milestone, it's look, I won't say it's elite company, but you become a statistical outlier in the context of NRL careers if you get to 100 games.
Yeah, absolutely. You hinted at his media, John?
Yeah. I'm not sure what the protocols were, but Will was on the media call this week, and he just casually dropped that he'd extended with the club. And we'd known prior to that notification from Will that he'd already extended taking up his player option for next year, but Will has actually inked a long-term deal with the Eels to stay to the end of 28. So he just casually dropped that in his media call this week, and I don't think the club's actually put out have they put out a notice yet? I don't think so. I think Will just dropped that in his press call.
Well, he's obviously excited by it.
We had an inkling, because I think when we had that quartet of players that re-signed, I think it was Tony Mattielli, Ronald Volkman, who was the third one, and Will was the fourth one there. There was some speculation that Will was in the process of inking a longer-term extension, but the club, when they announced those quartet of retentions, it was just the 1-year player option at the time. So clearly this one's been cooking in the background a little bit. Maybe just some minutiae of the detail and dotting of I's, crossing of T's, all that sort of usual verbiage that comes when it comes to contracts. But yeah, Will going to be a cornerstone building block of that backline that will hopefully feature Yongi, Lomax, the Fox, and Right now, Sean Russell, but maybe another contender in that final slot there as well. So another big roster spot locked up by Ryles as the clarity and vision really start to manifest for Parramatta's head coach.
John, how would you assess Will's season this year? Because it was a bit rough to start.
It was, and it felt like, and we had some really good chat discussions with people in chat at various times this year. It felt like he'd get one part of his game in phase, only to lose something else out of sync. He'd have great production on the ground, but then would have drop balls. He'd have a dominant defensive game, but then not be involved with the ball in hand. Or he'd miss some bad tackles, but then have a great offensive play where he makes a big bulldozing run and scores a try. He'd have these individual aspects that you'd be happy about in a vacuum, but on the totality of his workload in a given game, you couldn't say he'd have a 7, 8, 8.5 game at any point in the season. And then I think it was who did we play where he got suspended? Oh goodness, he got the dangerous throw. I thought he was outstanding in that game. Was it Manly? Who did he get suspended against? Chat. God, I can't remember. Chat, maybe someone in chat be able to tell me there. I think it was Manly, but he copped that 3-game suspension, and I thought he was excellent in that game. And I think that was sort of the turning point in his season. He came back from that suspension, played some really good football, barring the South Sydney game where he got done in by Towers Duncan a couple of times, which, to be fair, I think the majority of the team played well within themselves in that game. Dragons. Thank you, chat. He had a great game against the Dragons. So that was the one that he got suspended in. I could count on you guys. And, he's come back and played some really good football. And it is easy to forget that he's only 23 years old. Like, he has played football for so long. Was it 2019 he made his debut just before the finals?
I think so. Remember,
2021 was it? Not 2019, 2021. 2021, I think it was.
Yeah, he was still. Was he still 18?
He was.
It wasn't 2019. That's too young.
It was 2021. Yeah, he debuted just before the finals. Had that fantastic duel against Bradman Best in the week 1 finals game, and fittingly, the player he's going to be up against this week actually, as time goes full circle. And the standards were set so high for him so early on by the fact that he hit the ground running in the NRL, which you don't usually see from a centre, at least defensively. And I think he'll be his own biggest critic in terms of some of the lapses he's had this year. And I really hope that he can, with the benefit of this long-term deal, just knuckle down and round out those last few edges of his game and become one of the game's, maybe not the game's best centre, but one of the game's premier centres.
John, you went to the chat for a bit of help. Who have we got there tonight?
Plenty of regulars. I see rugby league histories in there. And people were lamenting the 0-1 loss the Newcastle Knights earlier, and RH was there. But Michael Formosa, Neil Ross, Michael Byrne, Aussie's in there, Chris Hill and Chris as well. Other Chris, as we like to joke around, right? I saw Mike Fleet in there before as well. Josh is in chat. Who else is there? There's Joel. Good to see Joel there. Was talking about big Isaac Jim. We had some specs on him from Joel there. I think he's 198 centimetres, just shy of the 2-ton mark there. 200 centimetres, of course. Because Isaac Jim will get to on the team list, but a big part of one of the squads is today, 60s. I don't know if you've seen.
Yes, I have. I've had a bit of a glance at the New South Wales Cup team.
Yeah, we got Philip in chat as well. Lots of regulars, lots of great banter and great discussions in there as well. And they were on their toes to help me with the Dragon question. That was the team that Will got suspended against for the dangerous throw. I noticed Chris posted a photo of himself over in New Zealand. Yeah, he did say he was getting out over there and made a hell of a trip of it. Certainly picked a great game to go over the ditch for. Eels throwing real anarchy into the top 4 battle by knocking over the Warriors. And we'll just pinch Chris as our international correspondent for those sorts of events in future. Yes. And, Chris is oftentimes our eyes on the sideline when it comes to some of the lower grade stuff, and he always gives some fantastic info in chat, and we do appreciate that.
Now, on a bit of a sad note, John, Hayes has...
he took the socials to confirm the news, and the club has updated their injury report with it. What do you even say? The code can be so cruel to some players who do not deserve it. Hayes has been riddled by injuries. He picks up another serious one with an Achilles rupture, I believe it is this time. And at this time of year, in a contract year for Hayes, it's horrible. I think you can pretty much rule out most of his campaign next year, regardless where he ends up, whether he stays at Parramatta or lands elsewhere. But just terrible. Honestly had a really good year, and I think was building to earning maybe a second tier or maybe back end of top 30 deal somewhere. And that has completely robbed him of his ability to, if he hasn't signed somewhere, and I hope that he has, I really hope that he has the security of a deal. It really makes you sick in the stomach, mate. It makes it churn. He did not deserve that.
We talked about Dylan Brown and coming through with junior reps, and Hayes was he was a colleague of Dylan's.
Yeah,
coming
the
through
18 SG Ball Grand Final winner.
Yep,
played in the centres. Yeah,
and one of the things that you knew watching Hayes was that in yardage. Or just in the kick return, he was always going to beat the first defender. There was like a bit of a step and a power through the tackle, and his work in yardage. That was really what got him into first grade when it eventually happened. Now it happened for Hayes a bit slower than some of his colleagues there in that team. He was probably, of those that have gone on to play first grade, I think he was maybe the last to make a first grade debut. But when he did, he ended up being in the COVID year, and he played in that semi-final against South, where he was called up in the morning of the match.
Yeah, Michael Jennings.
After the incident with Michael Jennings. So Hayes hadn't played all season. He'd just been part of the training group. And there he was, called up for a finals match. Acquitted himself very well.
He did.
Then the following year, where he's more of a regular in first grade, he got the Rookie of the Year award and looked like we were heading towards a very bright future. And then, of course, that knee injury from the hip drop happened.
Unwittingly, he became the poster boy for the hip drop tackle, didn't he? And how severe the effects can be. And obviously Tyrell Fulmiano was the one that did it to him in the preseason game and just completely derailed his career. Just
did every ligament in the knee, every ligament. So it was a horrific injury. It, as you said, it derailed the career because after that it was a succession of injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I see Josh in chat saying he looked like a 100+ gamer into our tackle. He'd almost be celebrating his 100 game the same time as Will. Just ahead of Will. It would have been early this year in an alternate timeline. So you really feel for him.
What we were seeing this year, John, you referenced this year, and he still had some injury issues this year. But when he was on the field for New South Wales Cup, it was the Hayes of old. He was beating that first defender, scoring tries. He just looked really. He had a confidence about his play, I thought, this year. So that one really hurt, and especially for it to happen in the last regular game of the season for New South Wales Cup. It was just
because it completely derails you next year. With, like you said,
So unfortunate. On the positive side, we can talk about Lorenzo Talataina.
Yeah, we had Jim Sarantinos on the podcast earlier this year, and he intimated that Lorenzo had signed a long-term extension, but the club had not made it official until out of nowhere it dropped today. And like Will Penisini, has inked a 3-year extension with the club to the end of 2028. And the club has broken it down as a development top 30 deal in the following 3 years. So he will be eligible for NRL duties without restriction next year. Although, there's a long straw to draw from long bow to draw from here to there right now. But he will go presumably into the preseason, get his more than his toes wet, you'd think, and give a good accounting of himself heading into next year. And it's very exciting, and perhaps maybe the key player to have locked up for the Parramatta Eels in terms of their current roster. The reigning SG Ball Player of the Year, not just for the Parramatta Eels, but for the entire competition. And he's since gone on to play not only Jersey Flegg, but he's starting in a week 1 final of the New South Wales Cup this week. So he just keeps kicking goals.
Yeah, absolutely. It may have been because I'm pretty sure he was locked up for next year anyway. But so this is an upgrade to go. I think he was like a New South Wales Cup level contract. So to go dev
opens up playing possibilities for the club and for him next year without limitation.
Yeah, absolutely. John, further good news too, with a couple of the Eels ladies getting awards at the New South Wales Rugby League Awards night. Abby Church and Tess McWilliams.
I mean, I'm going to be a little facetious with this, but I do first before I get cute and cheeky, I want to be very straight up and say congratulations both of them. Very well deserved. Abby was phenomenal in that 3-game series against Queensland. Was an absolute house at the back and had some big moments on both sides of the ball. And Tess McWilliams dominated that State of Origin game on the back of dominating Natasha Gale, and both of them really earned those plaudits. But with the best New South Wales player and the best young New South Wales player, surely we're certainties to play finals in the NRLW, right, Craig?
No,
it's just
things
have gone off the rails, have they? And the reason the fact that we have Abby and Tess and their plaudits they're getting here means that there should not be necessarily doom and gloom long term for the NRLW. But clearly they need a reset in some capacity heading into next year. They've lost their identity, they've lost their focus this year, and I'm hoping that they can reforge that in the off season. But plenty of reasons to be confident with Church and McWilliams, and alongside that, Rivoli, Arlaw. We've seen Fontaine Tafua be extended recently, Craig. A lot of talent around the team. They might need to make some bold calls in certain roster spots though. But well done to Abby and Tess. Phenomenal years.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there, mate, about making some bold calls in terms of roster spots and maybe particular positions on the field. Shout out to the Harvey Norman women's team, who won their 7th game in succession on Monday night up at Kellyville. They took on the Bulldogs. Now, the Bulldogs were far from easy beats. They're sitting mid to lower table, the Bulldogs, but the way they play, their physicality, their second phase play, they took it to Parramatta all game. So the Eels did particularly well to be able to get a 6-point win there.
It was a tough game, yeah.
It was a very, very tough game there. Absolutely. It was one of those games where it was like the game could have swung either way late in the match. But I was really impressed with the Eels forwards, John. I thought they did a really good job. Got a lot of time for the front rowers there in that team. Also, so a lot to, and given that the team is primarily made up of graduates of either this year's Tarsha Gale or last year's Tarsha Gale, it was it was a good outcome.
Yeah,
so
Chris is all over that as well. Harvey Norman Women's Premiership top 4, Tarsha Gale, Lisa Feller Premiers, like all the material. Like I'd say, 90% of the materials Eels need to turn their NLW into a real powerhouse are there, but I think you still need to go out and maybe find the last piece externally. You talk about playmakers and whatnot. I think that there's still that capacity for Steve and the crew to find one more difference maker as a steady hand at the top. But yeah, the pipeline is pumping right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John, just one other thing. We've got the Ken Thornett medal next Tuesday. So you and I have to talk about how we'll run it, the news podcast next week in that regard. But I think we should get our last minute predictions now. I think we've touched on it before, but let's go. We can only nominate one Ken Thornett medal winner, and we'll throw it to chat as well to come up with their Ken Thornett medal winner. You probably have to look at someone who's played every or close to every game this season.
Do you want to run it from top to bottom or from bottom to top? Go from flag up to NRL or just the KT medal?
Just the KT medal for now.
Okay.
So we can maybe look at some predictions later. Maybe even throw it in like for the lower grades in an instant reaction podcast or whatever. We might do a post, but I think we'd be too long now if we were going into every grade. And given we've got plenty there in the NRL news, and we haven't even touched Team List Tuesday yet. John, can only give one name. Who are you giving?
I think Gallagher, who's got a question for us later as well to go over. I think he's got my man there. because the KT medal, obviously excellence is a huge part of it, but consistency too. And you got to be, again, your best ability is your availability. And I think that someone like Jack Williams, who's been there for pretty much the entire season, I think he might have played all our games, I believe. I have to double check that one, but that will put him right in the running. I mean, Yongi, Adokar, he had that, I say, slow start to the season. He missed a couple of games due to that suspension he was serving as a carryover from why he departed the Bulldogs. Ditto for Lomax. I just look at, there's a lot of solid players. I mean, Riley Smith in chat, but he missed a couple of games with suspension as well. I think Jack Williams is my little smoky for the award.
Yeah, look, I like Jack Williams as a choice, John. I think in terms of where he maybe picked up more points might have been Isaiah Iongi. He probably had a few more flash moments, you'd say, through the season. So might have picked up some major points in that. But I think it's out of those two myself. With of course, a shout out to someone like Riley Smith, who is surely going to be the Eric Growth.
Well, he's up against Iongi, isn't he?
Oh, well, I guess. Yeah.
it's a absolutely loaded field for rookies at Parramatta Eels this year. And, we're not talking about Sam Tuivasa, who's missed the back end of the season, but he would have been in consideration for the gong as well in terms of the, like I said, the Eric Grove Senior Rookie of the Year. But then you got the Coaches Award, Jack Gibson Award, and the Nathan Hindmarsh Players Player as well. So I think the Players Player is going to be very telling this year. This was a really fascinating year under a genuine rebuild year for a new coach. And I think the Players Player will say a lot about the identity of his team and who the players are looking to for next year as well.
Yeah, that will be interesting, John. I reckon, again, it'll be the likes of Williams, Iongi, Smith.
Riley will be a good shout for Players Player, I think. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Goodness.
So the awards might get split between those players for all we know. Mm-hmm. Just very, very interesting.
Adokar's a great shout, Chris. Yeah, I think that, and Peter as well. All over that one. I think he could be an easy Players Player contender for sure.
Yeah. And given that he's very popular with the team and he does some of those things that unless you're right down on the field, you don't necessarily hear it, but he talks a lot through the game.
Yep.
And not just to the centre inside him, but he's doing a lot of calling out to the middle of the field about what's happening. He is a huge talker at training. And I'm not talking about, laughing and gagging and all that sort of stuff, which the Fox is known for.
He's the hype man, but also he locks in and talk. Yeah. And he's the guy that gets guys to lock in on the field too. So it's almost like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation, but where both personalities are really good rather than one being negative, one being positive. There is the jokester, hype man, Josh, and then there is the locked-in, intense talking at his team, Josh, and both have been critical for the Eels to find that balance on and off the field this year.
Yep. So, John, let's get into Team List Tuesday. We'll go through this rather than go too in depth with it. Just the main talking points for each team.
Yeah, so we start at the top as always with the NRL. Parramatta Eels taking on the Newcastle Knights. Season closer for the Eels out of CommBank on Sunday. Just the one change for Parramatta as they look to make their third straight win after getting the huge scalps of the Roosters and the Warriors in the last 2 weeks. Looking to make it 3 straight against Newcastle. And we talked about it in the lead-in, but Dylan Brown comes in to start at 5'8" alongside Mitchell Moses in the halves, Craig. If I just go check this quickly, that's the only change for the Parramatta Eels. But what is that here for deal? That would be cap number 142, I believe, for him. So that would be his 142nd and final game for the Parramatta Eels. And we already talked about the reasons why Ryles has rewarded him for this, but one last job, one last ride with his long-term running mate in Mitchell Moses. And again, just the irony that it comes against his Mitch has been reading the last podcast blog. I appreciate that. Yep. A head for radio indeed. I don't know if you saw the comment, Craig. We had a fun little troll come on and tell us that we're ugly and fat and got heads for radios, and we deserve it because we make fun of players' appearances on this podcast. Which, yeah, I know. I think he's mixing up websites and podcasts, whoever the troll was, but Mitch is all over it there with a bit of banter there. But yeah, only change to the NRL team this week is Dylan taking on his future employers. For the Knights, Craig, I know we're going to do the preview podcast, but we've got no Callum Ponga again. Jake Arthur comes back into the starting team. And the Fletcher Hunt's at fullback, which pushes Dan Gagai into the centres. So they're nowhere near 100% either. But they will be playing for a bit of pride here. Final game for outgoing coach Adam O'Brien. And I don't know, will they turn up for him? Who knows? But the Eels with plenty to play for, despite it being a dead rubber.
Yes. John, I think we've covered the Dylan Brown selection enough. I think in terms of how the Eels play, we're not going to be impacted. There's not going to be too much of an impact of Dylan and Joash swapping with for this one. I'm going to expect the Eels to play more of what they've been playing each week. There'll be a big crowd. Hopefully, it's the sellout that we've been trying to talk up, but it's the team that we expect.
Oh, I think Mitch might be our actual troll. This is fun. Well, I was hoping you'd have more incisive commentary, mate, but if that's the best you can do, I'm sorry. And what jokes about Sam Rani? The fact that his teammates call him Ibis? So his teammates setting the table for that? Okay, well, I'll give you one more comment to try and make something funny, and if not, you can have a permaban. So no pressure, mate. Last chance. What do you got? We're all waiting. I'm sorry, Craig, but you got to give him a chance. But I'd love for him to find the receipts. Okay.
Yeah, we don't have shots at players for their appearance when we were talking about Sam Rani, that was just what Lomax. He and Lomax have a bit of banter about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
That's only a reference to their banter.
Unfortunately, Mitch might have room temperature IQ, and we'll let him sit in timeout for 24 hours. So, yeah, exactly, Flea. Back to his mum's basement, 100%. And back to the show, as we talked about. God.
Yeah, so look, let's press on. Let's go to the New South Wales Cup team list because there's a couple of interesting selections there, especially when we get to the bench. It's a team now that's copped a hiding for the last two games of the regular season, unfortunately. So I wonder what's going on there at the moment. We know there's been some players out, but the sorts of scores that they've had put on them, especially last week against the Bears, was not good form leading into the finals football for a team that finished third on the ladder.
Yeah, and we mentioned, I mentioned it when I was talking to some mates, that I felt like against the Warriors there were some mitigating circumstances. A lot of players out the week before, making the trip to New Zealand up against the form team in the competition. You saw we had Wirram McGregor sin-binned in the first set of the game, and then I think Richard Penisini did his MCL shortly after. So in that game, there were reasonable circumstances for a score being put on you. They were just off the boil against the Bears on the weekend. Not ideal as a tune-up for the finals football. The saving grace is that it's a qualifying final against the Dragons, which means they're going to get a second bite of the cherry, win or lose. The win would put them up against the Warriors the next week in the grand final qualifier, or one of the grand final qualifiers. A loss would drop them down to the elimination game against the winner of, was it the Jets and the, where is my notes here? I had the...
Jets and the Raiders.
Jets and the Raiders, correct. So in light of that, it's high stakes, but it's not sudden death football. And I don't know if it's a lack of resources or a bit of a bold gamble, but there's been some interesting selections. At fullback, it's Arpa Twiddle. You got Bailey, Simonson, and Samuel Louise on the wings. Araz Nava and Jake Tungle round out the centres in the back line. Lorenzo Talataina, we talked about that extension. He'll partner Ronald Volkman. That's a big in for the Parramatta Eels. Volkman's missed the last two games. He comes back in to take over as a senior playmaker against the Dragons. Brock Parker and Tony Mattelli will lead the way in the front row because I believe Wirumu's been suspended. Not exactly a shock at this point for Woody. He's certainly on the shit list when it comes to the judiciary and the Reggies. Joey Lussick is the dummy half. Josiah Funariuta starts on one edge as part of a very young pairing of back rowers there because Will Lewis has been drafted into the starting team, Craig. Dan Keir captains the team from lock forward. Then it's a very young bench. Cruz Natili Schmidt is the dummy half utility, but they've called back up Igeti Samuelu while Ryder Talangi holds his place in the team, and Isaac Jim, who we mentioned earlier in the podcast, making his New South Wales Cup debut in a finals game. So a very young bench, a very young back row. I don't know. Again, are our resources stretched a little bit thin right now? Obviously, Woody's not available one way or the other, but they've caught on a lot of young players here, and it's a bit of a baptism of fire for some of them, and some of them have been a big part of the fabric of the team now for a while, right? Obviously, Arpa, Araz, Lorenzo, and even Josiah have all been relative fixtures across the last month or so, and we've seen Will Lewis and Ieti and Ryder in various parts and here and there, but they're calling in a debutant in Isaac Jim, and it's a big moment for him, isn't it? Out at Oki Jubilee, I believe it is, on Saturday evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Like all of those names, even though there's a couple of boys there that have are part of the Ron Massey Cup for Wenty. Look, Samuel's played probably more of the season in New South Wales Cup than not. Samuel Luizio.
Agreed.
He's out there on the wing, so he's no stranger to the teammates there. And of course you've got Cruz Natili Schmidt as well, who's been part of the both the Jersey Flegg and the New South Wales
Cup, across the last 24 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but of course they're part of that extended link to the club through Ron Massey Cup. But John, it is interesting. I think it is indicative of the injuries and the players that have been allowed to move on during the season. So, what will be interesting is I'm not sure who would still be eligible that's playing NRL this week moving forward, who'd be able to come back.
Good shout, because Joash does make the cutoff with 9 games played this year. Dean Hawkins misses because he only has 7 games and we chose not to play him in the final fortnight. So that was a conscious decision not making finals eligible. Let's bring it back up here. Matt Dory, I don't know if he's played the 8 games. He's played a few. Jordan Samrani probably qualifies.
Yep.
I would imagine. Let me just do some couple of player searches here. How's
Charlie Geimer as well?
Yes, Charlie Geimer is another good one. So Charlie Geimer has played. What do we got here? Charlie Geimer has played 7 games. Okay, so he's off the cutoff. Matt Dory has played 5 games. He's off the cutoff. I'm pretty confident Jordan Samrani would make the cutoff. I'll just double check though. Jordan Samrani 8 games. Okay, so just in. Bailey Simonson, I don't think he does, Jamie, but I'll just check. Bailey Simonson has played. Well, he's in though. So he's played 6 games and he's in. So maybe there's dispensation. I don't understand.
Is it because he's played more New South Wales Cup than NRL?
Maybe that's the there's a secondary qualifier versus 8 games minimum or more Cup than NRL. I don't know. Who else is in the NRL team this week that could be a factor? Sean Russell, no. Kelmer? That wouldn't drop Kelmer back anyway, I don't think, but he's played a bit of Cup. Kelmer Tuolangi. Kelmer's played 5 games, but he's played way more NRL than Cup, so I don't think if that cutoff is 8 games versus the balance, then no. And that would be all the Cup eligible players, I would imagine, right? Because the rest of the team's been NRL entrenched. Chris says that's it. Yep. So there obviously is some sort of qualifier there for Bailey Simons to play, having been perhaps more NRL or less NRL than Cup. But the other one's the only one that would qualify is Jordan Samrani. So maybe, well, I'm not going to disparage him by saying Ibis because that's what his teammates like to call him. But maybe the Ibis will feature in the Cup next week. We'll have to wait and see.
I think let's go with the Jersey Flegg now because because we've got that each grade's impacting the selection of the other grade. I think we'll go through that rather than going into the women's teams as yet. The Eels ended up finishing in 5th place in the season, so this is an elimination.
Yeah, it didn't get any help from the other results on the weekend. They did eventually take care of business against Melbourne Storm. They went down 12-0 before winning 52-22 in a relatively high-scoring affair. That was down in Melbourne. And they've got a couple of changes this week, some reinforcements and whatnot, and also players that they're missing because of the New South Wales Cup. At fullback, Nathan Howard, Lorima Rokasuka, and Muhammad Al-Madin on the wings. Tavaka Palu in the centres, but they've lost Antioch Vitala Mariner, which means Dom Stratus kicks out from the back row into the centres. Lynn and Hunter, the 7 and 6. Bo Lucian comes into the starting team because of all those promotions in terms of the forwards. He'll work alongside Tiankan Brown with Paddy Spencer doing half. Tyrese Lakini shifts from the front row to the edge, showing his versatility, while Chris Petrus is back from Patrician Brothers. And I'm not really sure what that means because they're taking on Endeavour Sports in the Pete Mulholland Cup Grand Final at some point this week. So I don't know if he's going to be pulling double duty there. And Max Popo, the lock forward. No Cameron Bamblett, though, who was the other major player in that Patrician Brothers team. I'm not sure if he's nicked up, Craig, but that would have been pretty handy to have Cameron back in the fold for this one. And then on the bench, Lachlan Koinakis, Raf Destratus, Damascus Nemia, and Javan Stevenson-Hala. They've got a big extended bench here of Trace Beattie, Wesley Picotti, and Isaac Jim also named here as the 20th man. So I don't know if that means that he's going to drop back from the grade and being in the mix here. They are playing on the same day out at Oakey Jubilee, 4 o'clock kickoff in this game. I think 7 or 6 for the other game. Let me just check my notes again. I believe it's a 6 o'clock kickoff there. So a doubleheader out at Jubilee Stadium on the weekend on Saturday. And they've got a few changes here, and maybe both teams subject to change ahead of kickoff too. We have to wait and see. Yeah, so you can see if you go to the New South Wales Rugby League site, you can see the ins and outs for the Panthers team because they were impacted by all the resting in the NRL team, which moved the New South Wales Cup team up to NRL and moved the Jersey Flegg team up to New South Wales Cup. So it was crazy for the Panthers last week. It ended up costing them a final spot in the New South Wales Cup. Yep. John, the only thing I'll say there, it's a pretty strong Eels lineup if Trace Beattie can't force his way onto either the bench or the starting pack, because in the games that I've seen him play this season, he's looked really, really good. We've mentioned on previous pods, but the Eels could legitimately field a second team that would make a run in the finals of players that have played Flegg this year. So it's both a testament to how good their depth and the not just how deep they go, but how like the breadth of their depth. I suppose what I'm trying to get at is that it's not just depth players. There is legitimate quality in the wings here for the Parramatta Eels, but also frustrating how they've been drilled in certain positions like fullback. But yeah,
and we've got all those players called up to New South Wales Cup as well. So.
Exactly. So look, they've got it all to play for this weekend. If they lose, it'll be. I don't want to undersell the opposition, but if they do lose, I think it'll be on the back of them playing poorly rather than the opposition coming out and kicking their backsides. This Eels team is, even as tested as it is with its depth right now, it is among the better Flegg teams I've seen us put together in quite a while.
Yeah. As we've said all season, their greatest threat is themselves. Just if it's not clicking on that particular day. So because their talent is certainly going to get them very close to winning. Okay, John, we now go to the NRLW team list. Any surprises at all there, mate?
Yes. So we do have some changes this week in the NRLW. With Steve Georgalis being, look, I'm not saying forced to pull the trigger, but he's certainly made some moves across the back line. He has dropped Zoe Fay to the Harvey Norman Women's Premiership, and in comes Kiana Takarangi, who makes a pretty cool piece of trivia for the Parramatta Eels history, Craig, becoming the first father-son-daughter trio to play for the Blue and Gold, with Louis and Brad, being the other members of the Takarangi family to have pulled on the Blue and Gold. And she takes her place on that left wing. In the halves, we get back Rosemary Beckett this week after she's cleared concussion protocols. She had an extra games time off with what looked to be a pretty heavy concussion. She comes back in at number 6, which pushes Fleur Ginn back into the centres. And then we go into the pack now, where it looks like it is mostly the same pack, except for Chloe Jackson coming back into the starting back row. She pushes Boss Kapua to the bench. As we saw last week, no Tanika Todd-Hunter. She was dropped ahead of kickoff, which means it's an all-forward bench of Kapua, Travis, McWilliams, and Arlaw there. So lots of talented young forwards there in the fold for the Blue and Gold. But yeah, extend the roster. Fontaine Tafua is the big one there. She is the first reserve on the back of that contract upgrade that sees her as an Eel through to 2028. Todd Hunter, Kennard Ellis, Faye and Middleton round out the extended options there for coach Georgialis. They take on the West Tigers here. So hopefully the Eels can get the win here, but it looks like Steve Georgialis has cracked the whip in some capacity here, Craig, making some changes. But individual changes only help the team so much. They need to find something that's missing as a squad right now.
Yeah, look, we've said it all season. The defence line is passive. It's just far too passive. We saw evidence of it again last weekend. Now, the interesting thing is that the second half, last week, the Titans did not have line speed themselves in the second half.
No.
Like fatigue was kicking in. The Eels had a lot more possession. And so the game became, I guess, almost a bit of a stalemate the way that it was played out there. But the first half was really dominated by the Eels' lack of line speed and the Titans, the pace of their attack. And they were just, the meters were just too easy. I don't know what it ended up, the average meters per set, but certainly in the first half, I would have said that the Titans must have gone close to doubling what the Eels were making outside of the kick itself. But yeah, and then attack. John, you take out the game against the Raiders, and the Eels have maybe averaged 9 points per game.
Yeah,
you're actually not gonna win any game. Like if you're averaging 9 points a game outside of
passive
that
defensive
game.
line speed and 9 points a game in offense are just recipes for disaster. And unfortunately for the Eels, I don't know what's been lost across the preseason to this year, because what they were doing last year was setting them up for great success this year. And they just seem to have lost the intensity and I suppose the application of those effort areas. That was what made them a borderline finals team last year, and had a lot of people, obviously us included, but a lot of people in the wider NRLW space thinking that they could be potentially outside contenders against the likes of the Broncos and the Roosters. And instead they've fallen off, and it's gotten worse as the season's gone on. Yeah,
so obviously the loss of a couple of key players, as Rory Owen has been a big out. Cassie Toihiku has been a big out. Like literally since they've been injured, the Eels haven't won. So it's correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've won since they've been injured, John.
No, they got injured. Was it against the Raiders? No, against Newcastle, was it? No, Dragons. I'm getting it was Dragons, right?
It was. So we eked out a win.
Yeah, we squeezed out a 12-10 win in that game. It was very rough and tumble in ordinary conditions, must be said. But since then, they've just it's been a downward trajectory for them. And they've fought some really good teams in the Broncos and the Roosters, but some winnable games against the Cowboys and the Titans as well. And they have not taken advantage of it. Yeah, Dragons. What is with the Dragons and them right now? Or the Dargans, as Chat's having some fun with. They've been in all these little weird milestone games for us. And yeah, it is tough talking about the NRLW right now, because you don't want to sink the boot in, because you know that the girls are trying, but they're just not applying themselves in efficient ways. And when you use your energy inefficiently in rugby league, the game spirals out of control so quickly. And case in point, these last month of football, where even if you excuse the losses to the Roosters and the Broncos, they were so frustratingly inefficient and their own worst enemies against the Cowboys and the Titans. And they had opportunities to win both games. And win with big wins, honestly. When you look at some of those possession splits they had in those games and the opportunities they were gifted, and the amount of times they just turned the ball over cheaply on the opposition red zone, just killing themselves. Like death by 100,000 paper cuts. And you can't fix them this year. I think that's pretty clear. Any hopes of making the finals, it's mathematical. I just hope here against the West Tigers they can use it as some kind of get-right game to some capacity. But again, the fundamental areas where they need to improve, I don't think you can improve in season. You need the proper preseason to reset. Yeah.
Now, the interesting selection really is the inclusion of Rose Beckett in the halves. Now, Rose came back in that Harvey Norman game on the weekend. I don't think she plays a game that's dissimilar to. I mean, I think we've got two halves that are basically the same.
Her game is. I wouldn't say she's modelled a game on Rachel Pearson, but they do have a lot of similarities. Being a composed, controlling half with a pretty neat kicking game. Obviously, we've had our criticisms of Rachel and maybe her inability to take the team by the scruff of the neck at points this season. But you do get two more stable halves in the team now. Fleur Ginn tried hard for the Eels, filling in at 5'8", but I think you saw that she was very much a run first half and struggled to get the ball out to the left edge at times. I'm hopeful that Rosemary's inclusion can help the team distribute the ball a little bit more cleanly. But
it does give. Look, honestly, I think she's a younger version of Rachel Pearson. And honestly, John.
I can definitely see where you're coming from there, and I suppose the concern there is in this, like for the rest of the season, is that oftentimes you don't want two of the same halves.
Yeah,
you do want contrasting pairs. And
yep, that's what I'm getting at.
The Eels are going to lack a dynamic running threat, a game-breaking element in the halves as a result of that. And I think they'll be able to, control tempo a little bit better with the two kicking halves in there. But yeah, they won't be able to capitalise on fast play the balls essentially, or half opportunities. So
Rose kicked, and I'm sure it was Rose that kicked the 40-30 the other night in the Harvey Norman women's game last night, I should say. So her kicking game was quite good. Now it does give a kicking game on both sides of the field, which you'd think would be beneficial for the Eels. But man, we just got to see something more. And I don't know how you energise the team, because to me, it's you spoke about what we saw last year. What we saw last year was high energy.
Yeah, it was high energy, aggression, swarming goal line defense, a willingness to chase the contact. And I know that a lot of people roll their eyes at chasing the collision and that rugby league, cliche or rugby leagueism. But the teams that dominate collisions, the Penrith Panthers and Melbourne Storm, there's a reason why they're so successful. Win the ruck, you win the game more often than not. And for the Eels, they have individually they've had some good hitters and good runners. Like if you go back and look at the film, you'll see the Elsie Alberts, making a great run, and then you'll see Mahalia Murphy may put a stinging tackle on. But as a team, they've been so off the boil. And look, I mentioned Mahalia. She was another one that really needs a bounce back game this week. She was awful on the weekend. A lot of drop ball, and we know that she's so much better than that. But they do need their senior players to direct the team. They need Murphy and they need Pearson to really step up and own the squad. And they need to get Abby more involved. Abby's been a bit of a victim of I don't know what's changed, but the attacking structures are not getting Abby into chances to spotlight her ability to split the line. And I don't know. They've got...
Look, you cannot fault what Abby's trying to do, but yeah, you're right. It's just not happening. It's like the ball doesn't get to her in a best possible position for her to do her thing, which is split the line. So whether it's, and I'm not looking at vision end on with Abby to see is she struggling to run the lines, or is it just the slowness of which the ball is getting out to her? The defensive teams had plenty of time to move up and slide, so she's not getting on the outside of anyone. But it's just not happening for her. John, it's I don't know. To me, they've just, I'm going to repeat myself. I think they just need to find more energy.
Yeah.
I think that if they can put pressure on in defence and back each other up, have I don't know. Like they played some good football in the 20 minutes. The second 20 minutes of the game against the Roosters. The ball movement was fast.
That has been their month of football, isn't it? Like, 10, 20, 15-minute passages of play where they have you teasing and believed that they could be turning the corner, and then they fall off. So, I don't know. I don't know.
So, anyway, John, let's go now to the Harvey Norman women's team. We do have a TBA in the list there, but I'll let you run through the team list.
Yeah, a couple of changes in the back line here. We mentioned that Zoe Fay was dropped to this grade. She goes into the centres. Ella Carlisle, the fullback, Paige Knapp and Tegan Long on the wings. TBA, the centre there, as you mentioned. Bettridge and Sufan, the centres, the halves pairing that we've come to expect. Jess Kennedy in the front row this week, showing a bit of engine room capacity there. She'll partner Ruby Jean Kennard-Ellis. Chelsea McKira is back and she's playing dummy half. Good to see Bella Sanford this week. She's on the edge with Josephine Lanars, who has played centre and back row, almost alternating recently on the edge this week. Kylie Gray, the lock forward, rounding out the starting team. Jones, Dimmick, O'Loughlin and Kalepo on the interchange. Caitlin Pearden, the reserve player here. And they play Kellyville Park on Sunday, midday.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's probably going to be a bit of a clash.
Just a wee bit of a clash, yeah.
It's just the way that goes, I guess. We're used to not being able to see the games that we want to because of clashing times. But, yeah, as I said, that's how it is. John, I just want to go back and double check the that team lineup from Monday night because
in the Harvey Normans?
In the Harvey Normans, yeah, because Jessica Kennedy played in the front row on Monday night. So I really like that move from the back row to the front row.
Yeah, so they named her in the 10, but they've got her on the edge on the match center, but I do think she played in the middle. So she's had a good season. She's captained the team coming across. Was it from Manly? Where did we get Jess Kennedy? But she's been really good this year. She's been on the extended NRLW roster for a few weeks now. I wonder if she gets a little slice of NRLW action at the end of the year, maybe. But
maybe
what is interesting here is the player that's not named Craig in the HNWP this week. No Fontaine Tafua, but she is named as the 18th player in the NRLW. So maybe something to monitor there around a potential debut. I don't know.
Yeah, look, I've been wondering as well whether Mahalia Murphy's been carrying an injury because she had an injury to start the season. Her season has never really got going. You spoke about her game last week, which she could not have been happy with. I mean, it was the sort of game that we don't expect from Mahalia. No. And I just wonder whether she has got an injury and whether that's going to be a late change. John, but back to the Harvey Norman women's team, the player that I really want to mention is Kylie Gray because she's now in that 13 in the Harvey Norman women's team, playing the similar role to what she was playing in the Tasha Gale, and looking super confident. Like she's that link between the forwards and the backs, and I thought she was one of the best on field in the game against the Bulldogs. So she's definitely a player to keep an eye on as well. We know what she can do. She played in the New South Wales team for the girls this year, and I think she's headed for NRLW sooner rather than later. So she might be one to keep an eye on at the start of next season. But that takes us through team list Tuesday, John, and we're about halfway through the usual length, maybe a bit more, of our podcast. So it's over to you for the musical interlude.
Yeah, look, we mentioned it in the Team West Pike, so I'll start the Team West chatter. It's Dylan Brown's farewell game, and it can be a pretty quick connection between Dylan Brown and Bob Dylan in terms of the music, right? And there's about 100 different Bob Dylan songs that will be relevant today. He's been a fantastic wordsmith and I suppose musical wonderkind for a long time. And I went to his super band days with the Travelling Wilburys, and it's the end of the line for Dylan as a Parramatta Eel, but still plenty happening.
Well, it's all right, riding around in the breeze. Well, it's all right, if you live the life you please. Well, it's all right, doing the best you can. Well, it's all right. someone to tell you everything. Sit around and wonder what tomorrow will bring. Maybe a diamond ring.
And we had a question from Chris asking, can we name all 5 in the band? And it was an absolute
Oh, of
powerhouse
course.
super band. Not all of them still with us, unfortunately. But obviously we start with Bob Dylan, Craig. I'll give you the next one if you want to. We go tit for tat.
Jeff Lynn,
Jeff Lynn, Roy Orbison, who was
George Harrison.
was absent when they did the filming for this song. Actually, he died post-recording, but pre-music clip, I believe. And
Yep.
they have his guitar in a rocking chair as part of a tribute to Roy. Obviously, sorry, I was,
Yep.
had to pop up.
George
there.
Harrison. George Harrison, one of my 4 favourite Beatles.
And Mr. Petty, Tom Petty, the last member of the band there, I believe. Oh,
Yeah. Throw out to the chat room.
one legend, 4 guitarists. Chris, too good.
Yeah. So to the chat room, he's never listed there in those in the group performances, but he's shown in the clip who was the drummer.
Oh. Yeah, well, wait. We'll see who gets the non-existent bickies from chat here. But who was the drummer?
Yeah. Clue is he did have a history of working with the Beatles post Beatles, like the individual Beatles. So very well respected drummer. So and he's in all those clips. So just thought you can't leave out the drummers. They like to hang out with musos, don't they?
The drummers are honestly they're the musical instrument you probably appreciate more as you start listening to more and more music. Chris says it was Jim Keltner.
Correct.
Yes,
Jim
Chris. Well done. So,
very good, very good. George Harrison penned tune there, but of course that link with Bob Dylan. I was waiting for maybe "It's All Over Now, Baby Blue" or something like that.
Like seriously, like in terms of Bob Dylan songs, like I said, there's about 20 of them that would have been apt as a farewell to Dylan of the brown variety. But I went with the one that it's end of the line here, but maybe he gets a diamond ring down the road. Maybe.
Look, the lyrics. When you think about it, the lyrics were perfect, John, for Dylan for this one. It's just, perfect. Okay, let's get into it. There has to be. I said it before. There has to be something in the water at Brisbane to have the drink feature in different formats for 2 players this week and giving them headlines that they don't want.
I mean, what Reece was on socials earlier this year, not in trouble because he can get in trouble, but he knocked out his mate. Like it was a willing conspirator in the process with a punch to the chin on the couch, and then he comes up on socials on Monday night drinking from a freshly installed dunny, and he was obviously doing a bit because it was a freshly installed loo. But mate, it's like what?
Now I've got to ask, John. I have to ask. Is he pitching for a third-party deal with Reece?
Reece Plumbing.
Plumbing
yeah,
products.
exactly. And I mean, Neil's in chat raising a great point. It's a bit of a look. Urban legend's not the right word, but isn't it a bit of a known fact that plumbers tend to christen their work?
Yeah.
It is. We know that people do dumb things, and football players tend to, at the risk of invoking Mitch Kenny's, who's came back on 2 alt, by the way, his rap about talking disparagingly about a player, but players doing stupid things. But like, what would inspire you to drink from a toilet? It's not even a funny gag. It's just, I don't know. I don't know.
It's like, I'll tell you, it's as well. No, it's not quite as stupid as Todd Carney pissing into his own mouth.
It is Todd Carney energy, though, isn't it? Like it really.
It is. Yeah.
And look,
it's
Todd probably copped too much of a penalty for what he did there. Like that was dumb, but he got absolutely hung out and quartered by the NRL for that gaffe. But Walsh has been no penalty here. I don't think you should get a penalty for it. The penalty is you've made yourself an absolute galah in the NRL for drinking out of the fucking dunny. Pardon my blue there, but Like, what possessed you to do it? And then put it on socials. I don't know. And I joked to you that Shibasaki must have drunk out of the bidet instead of a toilet because he's the one that got the ban. He got sat down by his team today with an internal disciplinary action handled. Do you have details on exactly what it was, or are we still waiting for clarity on the stand down?
I think in terms of the length of the stand
No,
down?
what the action was.
Oh, he's turned up under the weather, isn't it? He's
gone
out.
I missed
gone
that.
out on the drink the night before,
and rocked up the
turned
training. Still a bit cooked in terms of the DUI or the was it BAC? Sorry, not DUI.
Now, what do you reckon? How do you reckon the? I mean, we've all had times where we've turned up the next day and we're a little bit the worse for wear, but you're talking about turning up for a footy training session. They're who knows what time they're expected to be there, but what do you reckon? What do you reckon he's looked like or been like for the coach to go, "You've been on the piss, mate. What's going on?"
It must have been so bad that if you struck a match within 3 meters of him, it probably ignited the air. That might surely have to be pretty bad to not be able to hide it while doing essentially a recovery session at training. But yeah, it's how tanked was he still? Like, seriously,
mate. 40 years ago, this is how long, right? 40 years ago, it's the only time I've ever done it. I've rung up work on a Friday morning. I'd been out and had a big Thursday night, as you used to do back in the day, Thursday night. And I think I'd got home at like 3 or 4 in the morning. I've rung work and one of my mates has picked up the phone in the office and I've said, look, can you let the manager know I won't be in? And he goes, "Oh, not good." And I said, "Oh, a bit self-inflicted, mate. I just can't be in there today, how things are." And we had a bit of a laugh. And look, it was the public service. It was just an office job.
And you weren't facing the absolute business end of the season.
No.
With like an important setup game this week where the potential top 4 finish awaits them. And he's now potentially compromised that for Brisbane. So I salute Brisbane for having the guts to step him down. Obviously trying to make some standards hold there. But by the same token, Brisbane have got some very loose gears up there. And chief among them, their star fullback, who is just I don't even know what to say about Reece. Phenomenal talent, but mate, I suppose he's a product of his generation, isn't he? Like, just the crazy shit they're doing on social media.
John, like, what gets me is, and especially say with someone like Shibasaki, so his is a documented journey this year about a late success.
Yeah, exactly. Turning it all around, being a journeyman,
turning it around,
giving
right?
the game away.
He gave it away, and then it looked like all the promise that was there at the start of his career wouldn't come to fruition. And not only did he get himself a regular first grade spot this year, but he got an Origin selection, and we're about to hit finals football for the Broncos, and he goes out and does that. And you just think to yourself, like, I talked about being young and stupid before with myself, but as you said, there was I was hardly in a high paid or responsible position.
Exactly. And the thing is, he's going to have 2 months to, go absolutely buck wild in terms of getting drunk and cutting loose without obviously doing anything stupid. But he chose to do it on the eve of the finals.
Yeah.
Just silly. And, Josh and Jamie are in chat echoing your sentiments. Like, given an NRL lifeline on the eve of finals, how dumb are you? And again, I get that the Broncos trying to make a statement here. I do respect that. But by the same token, they've also got some disciplinary issues up there. And it starts at the top with guys like Reece who just keep doing dumb shit. And while he shouldn't be dropped or penalised for drinking toilet water, this is one of your core players. Like, just, I don't understand. I don't know. I'm starting my old man arc 60s. I'm looking at the current generation on social media and the dumb shit they do, and they're like, but why? Like, we used to have a lark and do stupid shit when we were young. And I'm not saying that your generation, my generation didn't do dumb stuff and make mistakes and whatnot, but what the current generation deem as funny. It's just like, oh.
Well, what it was, John, was you do something a little bit silly, and you might have a laugh about it later, but it wasn't ever filmed and put out
Yeah,
for the
and
world.
put for the entire world. Like, exactly. If you knew a bloke that was the loose cannon that would drink from the toilet, they drink from the toilet, and it was like, I remember old mate Barry drank from the toilet that time. You don't record it yourself and put it on socials. Yeah, James, like, what is this conversation? Yeah, exactly. What are we doing? Like, we're talking about an NRL superstar who's drinking from a toilet and posting on social media, and obviously us two bozos talking about it on a Tuesday night. Like, what is happening in the NRL? Yeah, Neil, you do dumb stuff, but you don't record it. Exactly, and this is the crux of the problem for a lot of these NRL guys, where they will do their booze and their drugs and whatnot, but then feel the need to record it. Like, again, just use your brains. I'm not trying to evangelize don't do drugs and don't do alcohol, but use your brains if you're going to do stuff like that, or do stupid shit like drinking from a toilet, or do a Todd Carney.
Yeah. The other big news this week was the Titans recruitment boss,
who
it looked like he was getting a gig over in the Perth Bears, and he was starting the process whilst he's still employed by the Titans in sounding out players, and with maybe a bit of confidential information from within his club. John, here's what I don't understand, right? If you have a job with a company and you're going to a rival company, you first of all, you should be telling who you're working for straight away, because that's just, I think, good commercial ethics.
Yeah,
for a
because
start.
it leads you to an intrinsic conflict of interest, doesn't it? Where
And you don't. And the thing is, like, people might say, look, you don't owe your current employer anything if you're leaving or whatever. But the thing is, you have a reputation then that follows you. Like, you want to be known as someone who operates above board, not as someone who's an organisation can't trust. And if you have a history of doing this sort of thing, that's not going to be a good look. And I mean, we don't know the ins and outs of it, but this is the basis of what's been reported, is that he's doing the work for his new club while he's still with the old club, and things aren't really above board with how he's been going with looking at the current contracts of different players that are with the organisation that he's with at the moment. So, look, my experience in the private sector, and I had probably about 4 or 5 years in the private commercial sector a long time ago. But when someone resigned to go to a competitor, they were normally asked to leave immediately.
Yeah, because again, you're put into a natural state of conflict of interest, and like any action you do in the capacity of your new employer puts your current employer at risk. And in this case, he's obviously given in the temptation and has used Titans facilities to pen his hit list, and including, was it 5 or 6 Titans? So I don't know if it went beyond that in terms of coercing, or maybe not coercing, but giving some of those alleged Titan targets some insider mail about potential Perth Bears offers. Because if that's the case, that's obviously an even more serious transgression in terms of overstepping his boundaries. But yeah, in chat, and you mentioned it too, but it's backfired massively on him because his job over at Perth has evaporated, and he's now left in limbo. And maybe he is persona non grata now in the NRL. And it is very hard to be black marked in the NRL. We have seen coaches, assistant coaches, players, trainers be marked by some serious stigmas and still manage to bounce around and find jobs. But the fact that this job has been pulled from the rug underneath him, he might be in a spot of bother for a little bit. Not the best place to be. John, I was watching a bit of 360 tonight before we came on for the live podcast, and there was a bit of debate about the forward pass and having the right technology, and when should the bunker get involved with the forward pass. It shouldn't Yeah, that's Pandora. That
End
is
of
a
story.
Pandora's box right there. Just like, yes, it sucks to cop shit forward pass calls, and Ashley Quine, who was in line and missed it, but the touch judge who was 15 meters behind. Like, what is he doing? He literally has two jobs in the context of being a touch judge, or three. Watch the sideline for foots and hands going on there. Watch offsides and watch forward passes. And he missed his assignment right there. Again, more officials, I think, is the answer rather than technology getting in there, so you can actually rule on offsides and forward passes consistently. But I don't want the bunker ruling on forward passes, because you just know it's going to, even with the ability to overturn, we've given interpretive powers to obstructions once again to officials, and all it's led to is wildly inconsistent calls. As soon as you open up the door for interpretation for the officials, consistency goes out the window. And I don't want that to happen on forward passes. And yes,
John,
there's going to be howlers missed, and I will cop that, because I do not want them ruling on 50-50s and saying, because it's Parramatta in this particular circumstance, or because it's Melbourne in this particular circumstance, it is or isn't a forward pass. Like,
do you remember when the bunker was ruling on forward passes?
I mean, 2 weeks ago.
2
weeks ago,
this was
Junior Barlow was ruled to have had a pass turned into a knock on. Like that is the sort of shit you're opening up to. If you green light them for forward passes, they're going to like that. Junior Barlow call was a complete overstep of the bunker's authority anyway. But they're the sort of circumstances you're going to get to where, and the reality is that there are so many marginal passes in the game right now that it'll probably hurt the product by having the bunker rule on forward passes.
Oh, yeah, because what they were suggesting, and again, this is just creating. I believe this is just creating talking points based on an obvious forward pass that was allowed to fly in the weekend's games. But it was when the bunker was first in, they were able to call on forward passes. It was atrocious. The inconsistency was there that you suggested. There were times where it looked like it was clearly backwards, not just out of the hand, but at worst the pass ended up being flat. I'm talking about the finished pass, and you would get forward pass calls with that. I'll give you a clue which team copped a few of them. So, which is why I wanted to steer completely clear. But can you imagine? Because every try gets scrutinised as it is now.
But
you imagine the bunker then looking at every try scoring movement, and then looking to make sure every pass in that try scoring movement, was above board.
That's the problem, because we have that forward. We have a little baby version of it right now in the obstruction interpretations, where we've seen this year the bunker saying, well, the defender made a decision to commit to this guy, but another time, the guy took the outside shoulder and gave him no chance, even though the guy ran into him. And just make it black and white with the obstructions. You run outside shoulder, it's an obstruction. That's how it was for years, up until this last 18 months, and it worked fine. I don't know why we needed to go back towards the interpretation angle where the bunker, depending on what they're feeling in a given game, can change, or not change, but interpret it differently. Forward passes, good Lord. And look, this is a News Limited Fox talking point alongside the wildcard round. Again, I come from a background where I watch the NFL and I enjoy the conference system and the draft system and the wildcard round. We don't need a wildcard round in the NRL. We don't need we don't need the bunker ruling on forward passes. It's to do a bit of a semi-pro Will Ferrell. It's provocative and gets people going, these discussion points, but let's leave it on the media talking slab rather than taking it anywhere beyond that, because it's not an issue. Like, you get a howl every now and then, and it sucks when it happens against you, and it's funny when you get away with it. But again, if they want to tackle the problem, give us the pocket referee, give us the additional sideline touchies, and let them watch the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. We just don't want them anywhere near bunker calls, and we certainly don't want technology in terms of like ball tracking and that sort of thing, because I hate to say it, people, if they had technology that could identify forward passes, our games would be lasting for 2.5 hours, not an hour and a half.
And again, Hawkeye works within the confines of a tennis court brilliantly, because it is such a small area to measure, and you've got the fixed cameras on better angles there, and you're only tracking the two players, one ball, like the 2 points of contact with the racket and the one ball. You've got 26 players on the field in rugby league. You've got all sorts of different factors there, and you've got a oblong ball as well, which causes all sorts of issues of physics at times as well. So again, NRL and rugby league almost can't help itself with I say itself, but it's obviously the primary stakeholders here are the media, with their almost pathological need to try and change things. And, things are working pretty well right now. Is it perfect? No. Are there things you could tune? Yes. I mean, we've made a big deal about the seven tackle, the set restarts. And for me, I'm ready to see the 7-tackle set go the way of the dinosaur. It was introduced years back as a way of punishing all the long kicking that was trying to take out the Greg Inglis's, the Billy Slaters, Jared Haynes at fullback. Now, if you knock on the ball in goals or you're competing for a grubber kick and it goes dead, you give up a 7-tackle set, and we're punishing good attacking football. So they're the sort of things I want to see the game address. But, in the meantime, we're getting short dropouts that are deemed contestable, but 20-minute dropouts that aren't deemed contestable. And we've got, all this rubbish about forward passes and wildcard rounds. Stop trying to change the product for the sake of changing the product.
I've just had this sent to me. I'm just going to see if I can get it.
Look, I had my old man rant about social media earlier, but I'll tell you what, the meme economy stays undefeated. People are so sharp with the memes and the turning happenings into jokes these days, and I do appreciate that part of internet, I suppose, demographics. Really quality stuff there. I was worried you're going to about drop a bombshell on me like we just lost someone or whatnot, but no, it was a quality Reece Walsh meme there for the podcast.
Yeah, no, I get things sent to me often by Yoko, but things sent to me on the phone.
Doesn't like rugby league, by the way. Just enjoys all the memes.
John, the Raiders, they're the ones to rest players this week.
Storm in a teacup, isn't it? Like, I understand concerns about the product and what all people pay to come see, but at this point of the year, where if you've banked the 15, 16, 17 wins to put yourself in a position for the minor premiership or to make your position in the finals uncompromised, then I struggle to see why you should be punished for resting players. And yes, some of the contests we've seen in the last week or so where the Bulldogs were gifted locked in a top 4 spot because of what Penrith did, and other teams have had their finals races impacted by teams resting players. I understand that is the more complex part of the equation, but I really struggle, at least with the way the rules are written right now. There is no provision to punish a team for doing what they're doing right now if they're resting. And again, the NRL is the most grueling professional, up there, the most grueling professional team sports in the the world of professional sports. 27 rounds plus rep football. Like these players are absolutely battered and bruised. If they're in a position to rest players, Jamie, they've earned the right to rest. We move on. I agree. And this is another media talking point that is, they're kicking the tires on it to try and drum up controversy and get the flames of incension sort of stirred. And some people are nibbling, some people are biting at it. Me personally, again, they've run a marathon. They're at the final mile marker right now, and they've had a chance to take a cup of water and maybe save themselves for the big sprint to the final, to the finish line.
Who do the Raiders play this week? The
Raiders play the Dolphins, is it? I believe they're one of the final games. Let me just pull up the docket here. Draw. They play the game before us, 2:00 up at KO Stadium. So what I will say is we were robbed of KO weeks playing at KO Stadium on KO TV, but that's about the only real issue with the Raiders resting the players this week.
You know what? The Bulldogs should be really, really grateful for the Panthers.
Oh.
The Panthers could have rested their players this week rather than last week because the Panthers are basically named a full-strength team, haven't they, this week?
Penrith have essentially named the full-strength team, yes.
Yeah, so it was interesting that that they had the rest 2 weeks from the final rather than the week before the final. And yeah, as I said, I think the Bulldogs can be grateful for that because they might have been in a very interesting situation coming into this week's round had they been allowed to or had they been forced to play the Panthers at full strength. I just had another meme sent to me. It was Scott Drinkwater versus Reece Toilet Water.
Oh, that was the joke I was going to make before I got sidetracked about the bidet joke.
Yes.
Reece Walsh dragging Scott Drinkwater into trouble in the NRL with his shenanigans with the toilet.
John, we don't get a spoon bowl this year, but we do have a match that the Eels are involved in that could determine the spoon. And I guess it all depends on whether the Titans can grab a win this weekend against the Tigers. I don't think it's out of the realms of possibilities that the Titans might be able to get over the Tigers. And then, of course, the Knights, if the Titans win, they leapfrog the Knights, and then the Knights would have to beat the mighty Eels to avoid the spoon. What's your take? What's going to happen this weekend? What's going to unfold?
It's tough reading, isn't it? Because the Tigers have played pretty reasonable football recently, although I think it's been, I say reasonable, they're off the back of 2 losses, aren't they? They lost to the Cowboys and then lost last week. What was the game they played last week? They lost where is their game? Yeah, they lost to Canberra. So they're playing decent football, maybe a little bit overstated in terms of the media. The Titans, I don't know. I don't know. It is a home game at Seabus. I don't know. Who do you want to see win the spoon more, the Titans or Newcastle?
Yeah, it's one of those ones where I don't really care.
Yeah, I haven't really got a dog in this fight. None of the traditional rivals or funny meme clubs to get the spoon are there.
I mean, if we're selfish from a Parramatta point of view, if the Knights know they're not going to get the spoon, then maybe they're going to be less
inclined to turn up.
For that last game. Look, I don't know. I mean, of course, the interesting thing is that the Eels and the Tigers are on equal points.
And Chris Ricketts is all over it in chat. The Tigers haven't finished higher than Paris since the 2018 spoon season, and we have a chance of extending that streak with an 11th-place finish this weekend. We need to hammer Newcastle. So, yeah, Ricketts is all over.
Who was that from, John?
Chris Ricketts.
Oh, he's up early.
He's up early. Yeah, he gave us a good morning in chat before too. Yeah, he's all over it. Look, on that notice, maybe it is a Newcastle spoon we're cheering for. Although the Titans can, well, no, not if we hammer the Newcastle, right? If the Titans win, beating the Tigers, just to make it funny, and then we beat the Knights are pretty much, because they've got worse form against the Titans already. So, yeah. If we hammer the Knights, no, I'm trying to think here. No, yeah. Look, the funniest result would be Tigers losing and then Knights getting pumped, right? Just to really rub because if we win big over the Knights regardless, we will jump the Tigers. But doing that, because we're only 5 points behind the Tigers in front against, but doing both those results probably the funniest, I'd say. Titans win, Newcastle get hammered. So,
well, who did the Dragons play?
The Dragons are not a spoon factor, but they do play where are they? The Panthers. So they got the Panthers at Wynn Stadium on Saturday.
Okay. And who do the Cowboys play?
The Cowboys have the bye. They've hit Mare Monday already.
Okay, so if the Tigers lose, if the Rabbitohs beat the Roosters, if the Eels beat the Knights, and the Dragons somehow beat Penrith, there is the possibility for the Tigers to finish 15th.
Plummet down the ladder. Oh, God, that would be funny.
I mean, equally, I guess there's every chance that we could, under those circumstances as well, if we were to lose and all those other circumstances, all those other results come in that way. But do we really want to death ride a particular team when all we really want is for our team to win this weekend? And let's repeat it, hopefully a sold-out CommBank Stadium.
Sold out or at least near capacity at CommBank would be awesome. So that is the hope for sure.
And congratulations to everyone who's been the 100% attendance this year. Any members that fit the bill there. We've had one of our listeners, as Christine, has got in touch with us just to say that she's going to be out there on the field as one of those 100%ers, which is great. I love hearing people who've been there every game this year. Anyone else that's in chat that's looking at 100% this year, let us know if they're going to be out there on the field. We'll give you a wave. You'll know who we are because we're wearing Eels colours, giving you a clap. So just look for us there. But any comments from chat just to round things off, John?
Yeah.
We're just at the end of the podcast.
Gallagher had a question in earlier that he wanted to address to us, sort of asking us to have a bit of a comp between where Lorenzo Talataina is right now versus where Blaze Talangi was, comparatively in their careers at the same time. It's interesting because Lorenzo's come on massively, hasn't he, this year? He's really, I mean, he was a talent before this year, but I think that Blaze was maybe the more pronounced talent, going back to the Harold Matthews. But this year, Lorenzo has just found gear after gear. And I would say that maybe he's surpassed Blaze relatively as a half, because the other thing is that Blaze had an injury-riddled final year of SG Ball where he ended up going from the halves, or was projected to play in the halves, went out to the centres and actually was pretty handy out there. So, I don't know, Craig, where do you see the two of them relative to their development cycles?
I think Blaze is ahead because, like you said, for a start, Blaze was battling those injuries, and he went from that particular season where he barely played into an NRL pre-season and starting getting his first grade debut very early on in the season that following year. So his last SG Ball season, well, actually, was it his last SG Ball season, or was he still eligible?
I think it was his last SG Ball season. I'm not sure. I think he was still eligible for SG Ball the year after that, wasn't he?
I'm pretty sure he was. So, whereas I think Lorenzo, was this his second year of SG Ball?
This was his second year of Ball, yeah.
Yeah. So there's the difference. But look, people go on different trajectories. Blaze was really coming through, as John said, as someone who was capable of playing different positions. He probably played a little bit more physical, I would have said, than Lorenzo. I don't think Blaze was. I think they're completely different styles of players. But like, to me, Lorenzo is very much play what's in front of him, and a little bit hard maybe for younger teammates to read. Like, he's just, you watch what he does, and I think that's why he's gone better in New South Wales Cup than he went in Flegg. Like, I think he's gone so much better in New South Wales Cup than he did in Flegg. To me, in Flegg, he was flashing, but there seemed to be times where his teammates had trouble reading him. And I thought his form fluctuated. Whereas I think in New South Wales Cup, he's done a very good job. He's been, quite consistent in his form. So very different players, and maybe they're going to end up on not dissimilar trajectories, because you'll have Lorenzo will do a pre-season, and this will be his first pre-season. From memory, Blaze did a part pre-season before he did the full pre-season, which led to his NRL debut. So it's probably fair to say maybe Blaze was given a few more opportunities in that regard than Lorenzo. But yeah, I regard them as different types of players. Who's the more exciting prospect out of those two?
I had a lot of time for Blaze as a prospect. People that will follow my reports for the junior reps knew that I was very high on his talent, and his ceiling for a long time. But Lorenzo's really impressed me this year, mate. And you sort of, here's the bird in hand versus the one that's in the bush right now, isn't it? With Blaze having part of the club.
Absolutely. It's interesting you say that, John, because Blaze, from Harold Matt's days, not dissimilar to Dylan, you watched him play and you went, I think this bloke's going to be playing NRL.
Yeah.
Lorenzo at Harold Matt's level, I don't know that I was feeling that, but this year in SG Ball, his form just exploded.
Yeah. And
Just
by all
absolutely
accounts, he
exploded.
really applied himself off the field, was a real gym rat, is perhaps like the strongest guy pound for pound at the club, which is a lot to say for the Eels. But I think he's really, really applied himself, and he's reaped the fruits of those efforts on the field this year. Like you said, he made a real big jump from the Harold Matts to his second year of SG Ball. He'll catch your eye with all the sparkling runs where he looks untouchable, got spiders on him, but has had some great contact and defense. He's actually sharpened up his kicking game a bit too. He's not a dominant kicking half, and maybe he never will be, or maybe he'll be able to hone that game, part of his game, even further. But he's tidied up his other rounded playmaking aspects, and like you said, he's a guy that plays the game faster than pretty much everyone else on the field in his age brackets. And as you pointed out, in the SG Ball, that was enough for him to just generate outright line breaks. In the Jersey Flegg, he was still doing that to some capacity, but the bigger, faster boys were able to wrap him up a little bit better, and his teammates weren't able to read him. But in New South Wales Cup, you're getting more guys being able to read and react to what he does off the cuff. So, look, I think Blaze is maybe the better overall prospect, and he certainly has a more projectable NRL frame because Blaze is, 180, like high 180s in terms of the height, and he's going to fill into that frame. Lorenzo is shorter, but is dynamic, and he has really worked hard to make sure he maximises his frame relative to his height. And while he won't ever be a giant in the halves, I think he's got the explosiveness that Blaze doesn't quite have as well. Like, Blaze is a great athlete, but Lorenzo is sharper with his footwork and ability to break contact in the one-on-one situations.
And we should mention that Lorenzo is a product of the Rouse Hill Rhinos. And it's interesting because, in the past, there was a bit of a criticism about Rouse Hill Rhinos players getting a bit of a leg up because BA was there and what have you. Guess what? They're one of the bigger clubs in the Parramatta district.
It's a cycle as well.
You're going to get
sometimes Wenty's the dominant feeder club. Sometimes
Yeah.
Rouse Hill. Sometimes any number of clubs out there.
Once you get to the older teen, mid to older teen brackets, there's not as many clubs that are fielding teams. So you're looking at the bigger clubs in the Parramatta district, and of course, your likes of Wenty and Rouse Hill and Cabramatta, they're the ones that are going to be putting out Hills Bulls. They'll be putting out teams in those age brackets. You're going to get players from those clubs, as well as like there'll be other clubs there like Guildford, and that will have their run of might have a talented group of players coming through, and All Saints, Toongabbie, and all the clubs across the. I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about 30 clubs, or not 30. I think it's now 26 or something like that. And not all of those go to teens because there's some of that's the Sunday comp. But you've got all those teams there, and as you said, John, they have their peak years that might provide a whole lot of players through to the Parramatta system. He's a Rouse Hill Rhinos product. So congratulations to Lorenzo on that contract. Any other questions, John?
I saw Jim Duggan was asking us about the war chest. I mean, obviously we spent a bit of it just now on the Lorenzo extension and the Will Penisini extension. I think you're a bit optimistic looking at Payne Haas there, Jim. I think he's been, he's shoring up or closing in on an extension with the Broncos. But I imagine the Eels still remain very much in the hunt for another marquee or top tier addition somewhere in the team. Maybe somewhat opportunistic here based on what the market brings to them. And we talked about it in the instant reaction, didn't we, about what position would you be chasing? And I think the consensus in general was a middle forward. But if the market spits out an outstanding back or an outstanding edge back rower, maybe you have to jump on that. But right now, I think, Eels doing a lot of internal housekeeping, signing up all those young prospects, extending key players like Will Penisini, and I think they're ready to strike. I don't know who it's going to be, though. You have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think if we make one significant signing, I think that'll be the extent of it myself. I think we will have, if both Maddo and Brendan Hands stay over there in the in the European.
Two important contracts that the Eels have to wait and see if they clear the books for next year. I think there is a little bit of space in the cap still too, but when you're talking about Ryan Maddison, he was clearly on pretty premium dollars, in excess of $600,000 based on what the offer was from the Dolphins at the time. And Brendan Hands, I have no idea what his contract was worth, but even if it was league minimum, you're talking about a fair bit of cap space being freed up there. Matthias asks us how tall is Lorenzo, Papa Lee size. I think he's a little bit I would hazard a guess that he's a little bit shorter than Joash. I think Joash is incorrectly billed at 168. I think he's 178. I think Lorenzo is a little bit shorter than that, but I have to wait for the official specs, obviously, from when he becomes a member of the full-time squad. Maybe Chris can give us a bit of insight there, but my gut feel was that Lorenzo is a bit shorter than Joash.
Look, I'd suggest that as well. It's wrong with Joash at 168. Joash isn't tall,
no,
but he's
not a mini me either.
He's not 168. What's 168 convert to? It's like, what, about 5'4", is it? Like,
it is 5'5".
Yeah. He's taller than 5'5".
Yeah. Speaking of Chris, he asked us who's the biggest threat in Flegg and New South Wales Cup among our rivals. Well, Cup is pretty clear, I feel like, isn't it, Craig? Warriors have been run away.
Warriors are just a standout. The Flegg's harder to get a judgment on, because you had the Storm that were runaway minor premiers, but we beat them a few weeks back in what was a proper contest. Obviously, what happened on the weekend was Storm resting players, and it was an easy victory there. Look, I'm worried about this week against the Panthers. To be honest,
they rung us up last time we played them, didn't they?
Yeah, but I think
that was in the midst of our slump.
Had a lot of players missing that day, and young Lydiard had he had a freak of a game.
Yes. In
that one, there were some moments, there were some passes that were thrown in that game by the Panthers when they really started to chance their hand, that were like miracle balls that was sticking somehow. So, look, I guess because they're a Western Sydney rival and have genuinely been competitive all season, so I have to say them, because they're the first cab off the rank. And if we lose that, it's all over. So, yeah, I'll just say the Panthers.
That's a pretty good answer. And the context, like in the greater context too, the Eels have beaten all the teams above them, haven't they? Like they've beaten the Panthers, Raiders, Sharks, and Storm, I believe. So I'm not particularly worried about an individual team. More so, like I said, the immediate threat of the Panthers. And as we've pointed out prior to this podcast and others, I think the Eels' biggest opposition is themselves. This is a team that, even though it's down to, it's not necessarily a second string team, but they've filled two full teams of finals caliber players. They should be able to knock off any of the four teams above them on the ladder. But can they put it all together for the 3 or so games required? What is it? No, we're in because I hate top fives. So we're in the elimination final. We play the loser of the qualifying final, and then we play the loser of
if we win.
If we win. We play the loser of the qualifying final, and then if we win that one, we play the loser of the major semi-final, and then we go through to the winner of the major semi-final. So you got to win 4 games, right? From our bracket, you have to win 4 games. I hate top 5. So inelegant, I suppose.
Because the Harvey Norman, I think, is just a top 4, and it's just 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, and the 2 winners go into the grand final. So it's a 2-week final series. And that gets them finished, I think, at the same time as the other New South Wales Rugby League competitions, because they've still got 2 regular rounds to go. So the 4 weeks of the finals for the New South Wales Rugby League with the men's, with the top 5, played over 4 weeks. The women's played over 2 weeks. They get the grand final on the same day. So I think, is the grand final scheduled for CommBank Stadium?
good question.
I've got a feeling the grand final is. I think you've got semi-finals, the finals this week at Cogra. I think the week after that.
Everything's Leichhardt and Jubilee up until the grand final, which is at CommBank on the 20th of September. So,
let's hope we can get some Parramatta.
Pretty cool to have a couple of Parramatta teams there on the big day at CommBank.
I'm hanging out for that to happen. Like it would
especially
be a good
especially
way,
for the Cup. Like the Flegg have done great this year, but the Cup have battled so hard, and I feel like it'll be a deserved reward to get to the big dance. But they've got a big hurdle to get through. They do have the benefit of being in the qualifying final, so a loss means that they're still alive. A win puts them through to the major semi-final up against the Warriors. But yeah, a lot to play for in the coming weeks for the HNWP as well, who will probably feature in the finals too if they keep their track record intact. Another question from Jim asking if the NRL jersey is getting a total revamp next season, being that it's a second year. I'm not abreast of that situation. You might know more than me, Craig. Are we in line for another jersey revamp? I don't know what the cycle is anymore in terms of updated home and away kits and heritage kits.
Was this the second year of the current jersey? I think it was, wasn't it? Like there was only just a minor tweak to the.
It was a very modest tweak with better sponsor integration, wasn't it?
Yeah. Look, to be honest, it's that's probably a good question we can throw at the club. What's happening with the jersey for next year? Yeah.
Yep.
If it's been raised at the supporter group, then I'm going to plead that I've got old age and I've forgotten. So.
Any other quick questions? Mitchie says, look like Wiramu's being dropped. I think he's being suspended, unless he was named an RMC and I didn't see, because there were a couple of penalties in that game against North. So let me quickly check the Ron Massey Cup squads. I don't think he'd be eligible for Cup finals anyway.
Was Wiramu sent to the sin bin?
Arpa was binned early in that game was it a high shot? It was Arpa, wasn't it? Let me just check if it wasn't Woody. I mean, if you told me that Woody had been sin binned, I would not be shocked. I drifted out of this game. Yeah, Arpa was sin binned in the 35th minute. So it's look, Woody has probably more prize than any other player in the Cup this year. So he'd have to just sneeze on the opposition player and it'd be called biological warfare and he'd probably get a month off. So
True.
Yeah, chat, any other questions? Let me just go back and read. Yeah, people having a bit of fun with a potential recruit from England and our spotty track record with English recruits. Yeah, we have not had a lot of luck, at least in recent years or last decade and a bit, recruiting from her. Mitchie asks,
who was that infamous one again that never came?
Gareth Hock. They're all over that in chat, mate. Yeah, is Hock coming? Yeah. And it's funny because he was probably the ideal recruit in terms of having a bit of mongrel and almost that insanity at times, but never got off the didn't even get on the plane. Didn't have a chance to get off the plane. Mitchie asks, is Simonson now staying? We haven't heard much about that since, but reading the tea leaves, I'd be very surprised. Maybe they can break bread in the off season. I don't know, but I don't know. Given the way it went down, it blindsided the club with the news dropping on NRL tonight. I don't think that was greatly appreciated. I'm not sure if the bridge was burnt beyond repair there, Craig, but Jason Ryles is the wrong coach to cross in that regard, based on his track record of receipts this year and the players that he moved on that had more tenure than Bailey. I don't know. I would like to. It'd be cool if he did find a way to stick around and they manage to iron things out, because Bailey is, a good player and would be very handy to have competing for a frontline spot or being the first backup. But I don't know if too much damage has been done there.
And I'll tell you what, along the line as well, this season, let's give some credit to Sean Russell and what he's done this season.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that you'd have to look at with Sean is, is he been one of the most consistent backs for the Eels this season? I would argue, has he been the most improved back this season? Look, you probably go with Iongi because he was primarily New South Wales Cup before this season. But I bet there's a lot of supporters out there who would not have had Sean Russell as a starting centre this year, and probably coming into this last round, I think he might have turned them around a little bit. Now, Sean's, you then have to say, will Sean benefit further from a second pre-season under not just Jason Ryles, but the likes of Scott Wisemantle and Nathan Brown?
Yeah, and
as well.
Sean,
who've done
it's interesting
that
because
work
Sean
with the
really
Packs.
profiles as like that sort of player that the Melbourne Storm will have to pick up and mould into a really handy backline player. A bit of a Nick Meaney type tier player, but Nick Meaney obviously a bit more speed and the goal kicking's a bit sharper than Sean's, but the same kind of player there. And I think that, we haven't seen his ceiling just yet under the current coaching staff perhaps, which is really good. Yeah. Not a football question, but Chris Hill wanted to talk to you about some sad news today. I don't know if you caught it, or yesterday, it was today, I think. Former heavyweight boxing champion for Australia, Aussie Joe Bugner, has passed away at 75.
Oh, no, I wasn't aware of the news. Aussie Joe fought Muhammad Ali.
He did fight Muhammad Ali, yep.
This was when he was fighting for England. So he was England Joe Bugner back then, wasn't he?
Yes.
Or British Joe Bugner.
Yes.
That's a bit of sad news. He was a personality, a character. So, and I think from all reports, a gentleman. So, a bit of sad news there.
Yes. Never good to see, a legend or an icon passing away, and Aussie Joe, he moves on. It wasn't so much a question, but it was a sort of thought from chat that I extrapolated. We're talking about obviously Blaze Talangi and Lorenzo Talataina, and then some thoughts in chat along the lines of that they were, with the benefit of hindsight, they were happy with how that parlay worked out between the Panthers and the Eels unofficially. They get Blaze Talangi, we get Isaiah Yongi. With the benefit of hindsight, looking at what Blaze has done for the Panthers, slow start, took him a while to find his feet, has looked quite sharp in the back half of the season though. Looks to be set to be Nathan Cleary's long-term partner. Isaiah Yongi, one of the front runners for Rookie of the Year, front runner for the Ken Thornett medal. Would you make that? Would you go back in time and if that was given to you as an outright trade, Blaze Talangi for Isaiah Yongi, would you make that trade, or would you, obviously ideally you keep both Blaze and sign Isaiah, but within the confines of a framework of a hypothetical trade, there, would you do that trade?
That's a really interesting question. So we're talking about with the full knowledge of 2025, and how it played out.
Yep.
Look, you would have to say, did we have another player capable of playing fullback the way Iongi does at the Eels? And you'd say no. Do we potentially have a staff 5'8" at the Eels? Then you might go, Joash could be, Lorenzo could be.
Well, we are far better stocked at 5'8" than we were at fullback, so that's true.
Yes. So look, you've probably been more succinct than me in your response there, John. So I'll go with that.
It looks like chat generally agreeing. People talking about the framework for an Iongi extension. He still has 2 years of running his current deal with Parramatta, but would the club be kicking the tires on extension, Craig? Signed to the end of 27, I believe now. But and then people talking about the potential value. I don't know. If a guy is your guy, which is, I know, weird sentence in a vacuum, but if a player is your guy and you have him marked down as your long-term piece to build around, the sooner you sign him up, the better, because every game, every week, every round, every year they play, you can almost add another $100,000 easy on a contract value on an average per year basis. So, yeah.
I think, John, you would find that Isaiah, and what do the New Zealand callers call him? Yongi.
Yongi.
Yeah, Yongi. So, and I wonder, they might be better versed at the correct pronunciation. I've never actually asked. If I get a chance, I'll ask Isaiah. Maybe someone in chat has had a chance to talk with him about the pronunciation.
From the English shape of things, you really emphasise the I, don't you? Yongi.
Yeah.
But it's quite possible that it is just Yongi, yeah. And
Yeah,
you roll over that eye fast, yeah.
Yeah. But look, I would say if you, I've heard that he's basically said he'd love to just extend now, like he'd be ready to do that. So that's just what I've heard on the grapevine of what he said to people. However, you do have some people called player agents out there as well.
It's never as simple as just a player wanting to stick around. Exactly, yeah.
Look, he is a very happy player at Parramatta. It's obvious, not just in the way he plays, but in the way the team are together as well. And yeah, I'm sure he'd sign on the dotted line. The interesting thing too is I remember right at the start of the preseason, I was talking to Riley Smith about it was something to do with feeling like part of the club, and I think I said to him, "Look, you've got your roots in Penrith, but you're a Parramatta fella now." And he said to me, "The moment that I left Penrith, I stopped being a Penrith player. The heart became Parramatta the moment I signed with them." And that's what you want to hear from any player, that it's not just they're paying my wages. It's that the heart becomes that club the moment that they sign. So, and I think what we're seeing, because Jason Ryles has been about having that respect and passion for the jersey and the badge. And I think you'd have to say the team's demonstrating that, John. I think they do take pride in wearing the blue and gold. I think they take pride in their performance when they go out there on the field. And apart from that game against South in the back end of the season where we said, look, we didn't see the fight in that game. We just didn't see the fight in it. We've seen the fight pretty much in every other game.
The intriguing thing with Yongi too, or Yongi, if that is the correct pronunciation, is that it's not really talked about, but we barely saw him in the preseason. He was on tour as the backup fullback for Samoa. So he has obviously done a fantastic job integrating himself into the team without a full preseason. I don't know how much a full preseason elevates him heading into 2026, but there's no doubt a chance to build those bonds with both Mitchell Moses and presumably Joash Papali'i, although maybe it is someone else that comes out from the clouds to contend. But we figure it's Joash at this stage. Can only help the team. And yeah, Riley Smith and Talon Silva too, of course, the dummy halves as well. And even the forwards. Like we saw him work with Junior on the weekend. And that little bit of interplay between a prop forward and the fullback and how key it is. You know, the edge forwards like Kelma, Kitione Katonga, their ability to deliver outstanding second phase football. Yongi's the sort of player that can feast off that. So really keen to see what he can do with a proper preseason under his belt, integrated into that. We've got to figure out an acronym for it, but the Ryles, Brown, Wisemantle, Moa systems that are in place there.
You got to
it was Tonga.
He's going to be running off the hip of not just the middles but the edge forwards, because the Eels edge forwards have proven that they can pop a pass. And that's going to be interesting with the decision about who plays on an edge next year, because you've got both Kelma and Gideon, who to me are very, very similar players.
Yes.
Like they are impact players who run the ball hard and have got that deft offload in them. And then you compare that to someone like Charlie Geimer, who's a workhorse. Jack Williams is a bit of a workhorse, but has that really fast leg speed. It's going to be interesting competition for places in the second row. And then, of course, you've got emerging players like Will Latu, for example, and we'd love to see him get an uninterrupted season next year. So, I don't know whether Will might get back in the final series.
That'd be a pretty handy inclusion.
It would be. Maybe they're not going to push too hard on that. I'm not sure. I knew he wasn't going to make it back before the end of the regular round. So, they might just decide, you know what, we'll just get him right for the pre-season. So
Jim wants
anyway,
to see Dory upgraded. He did get an extension this year on the back of his form, so he has obviously earned an upgraded deal in the eyes of Jason Ryles. And it's this is such an interesting conversation to have, and it's going to be a big part of our off-season focus. Obviously, is how much have players elevated themselves in the eyes of the coaching staff, and what that means for recruitment and team selection heading into next year. You mentioned Will Latu. There's also Josiah Funarayutu that's lurking on the edges next year, quite literally, edge back row. So going to be some fantastic competition for spots heading into that preseason before we add on anyone to the squad. Yeah, Chris Ricketts is all over Sam Tuivasa taking a big leap next year. Sam had a very good year for a young bookend. They usually hit a wall, and he did not. And part of that was some good roster management from the club, putting him just easing off the gas pedal at one point in the season to get him back into Reggie's and then back in the first grade. But yeah, that MCL, a blessing and a curse, Craig, because it means that the attrition doesn't wear him down heading to the preseason, and maybe stokes the fires just a little bit more for him to be really pumped up for next year. And I think that Sam is set for big things next year. So
I'm pretty sure he had some good mentoring from junior this year as well. I'm pretty sure they might have been travel partners in the like with training as well.
Passing the torch, maybe.
Yeah, it could be. Okay, mate. Well, I think that's just about got us to the end of our podcast
Big
today.
old yap as usual on a Tuesday night, and thanks to everyone that's turned up, and even our old mate Mitch, who came in complaining about players. But yeah, some fantastic conversation out of chat. Great to have Chris Ricketts on board here. Hopefully we'll get you back on the show at some point, mate. I know you've been absolutely flat out, but with the pre-season looming, we can probably be a little bit more flexible in our recording hours and work towards.
Yeah, Chris has got some ideas that he wants to put out there for the pre-season with the podcast. So I think you and Chris will be putting your heads together about how you organise some of that, John.
Are we in Queensland? Two heads?
Yeah. So look, just again a reminder: don't forget the Dennis Carnahan show at Vikings. If you're a member of Parramatta Leagues Club, you're a member of Vikings out there at Dundas, and that's a great value night. $50 for the rugby league, the musical, and the comedy stylings of Dennis Carnahan. That's in Queensland of fame, Dennis. And so that's on the 11th of October. It's a great, fun season review with one of Australia's best comedians who just happens to be a really good musician as well. So look for that. Head to our post on TCT for the QR code, and or you could head to rltm.com.au for tickets as well. So be sure to check that out. You're bound to have a great night. As I said earlier, you just stick your footy jerseys on and come down to Vikings down there at Dundas and just have a great night. Thanks to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels, where we will be on Sunday in Stirlos for our final appearance of the season with our match preview. Just head down there. We have a bit of fun with the preview. We don't take it too seriously. And, of course, no matter what platform you're watching or listening to this on, give it a like and subscribe, all the sort of stuff that everyone who creates a podcast talks about.
The content creator
The reason
special.
they talk about it is we need it. It actually helps. It helps the site to grow. So please hop on and do that. Thank you to everyone that's been there in chat tonight. You really do help the podcast along. John loves to get in there and have a look at the comments that you make or throw some questions at us as it's happening live. So we really do appreciate everyone jumping in live. And John, we're heading into that last round of the NRL, and I've got to keep saying it. Go you mighty Eels.